Welcome everyone to Behind the Impact. In this podcast interview, we take you behind the scenes of our crowd investing platform BetterVest. For everyone listening who does not know BetterVest yet, BetterVest is a crowd investing platform that connects project owners seeking funding for sustainable and socially impactful initiatives with investors who want to support and profit from these projects. My name is Annemarie and I will be your host of this episode. And today we will explore how local expertise powers BetterVest's African projects. Joining me today are two incredible guests. We have Emna Jabri, who is working as debt origination and structuring manager at BetterVest. Hi, Emna. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And we also have our partner, Penninah Munyaka, who is a legal expert from Rödl and Partner in Kenya and also the CEO of our local SPV special purpose vehicle in Africa. Hello, Penninah. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be here.
So together we'll look at the opportunities and challenges in the impact investing market, as well as for structuring loans in this market. And we will also uncover how local expertise, strong partnerships, and thoughtful structuring turn impact ambitions into reality across the African continent. So yeah, thank you both so much for being here. And let's start right away. First of all, I would like to get to know you both a little better. We start with you, Emna. Could you briefly introduce yourself and your role at BetterVest? And I would be especially interested in what personally excites you about working in the field of impact investing in Africa?
Thank you, Anne-Marie, for the kind introduction. So a little bit about myself. I'm Tunisian, and I've been working in the impact investment sector for the last 7 years or so. And my expertise is specifically in credit structuring and risk analysis. In my role at BetterVest for the last close to 2 years, I've been working directly with entrepreneurs, mostly African entrepreneurs, who are looking to raise debt financing through our platform, so through our crowd lending platform, BetterVest. And my role is to guide them from the very moment they apply for financing to the moment we work together on agreements and how to structure the best resilient debt financing solution for them. So what excites me about working with clients of BetterVest specifically is that I've seen firsthand how impactful these loans provided by crowd investors can be. This is because often we see that this is the first or one of the first loans that these companies obtain, which means that it helps them build credit history and therefore helps them access more traditional financing. This is really like a step that helps them truly scale their projects. This is why for me it's exciting, but also on a personal note, being Tunisian, I'm strongly connected to the continent. And I feel personal about some of these projects, let's say.
Yeah, thank you so much, Emna, for this great introduction. And I think it's very inspiring that you say it really works as a catalyst, can we say it like that, for these project owners and their businesses. So yeah, thank you so much for this introduction. And let's now turn to our second guest who's joining us live from Nairobi in Kenya. Penninah, we've also met in person just, I think, 3 months ago, which was also super great and inspiring. Now to our guests who don't know you yet, could you briefly introduce yourself and tell us how do you see the role of a lawyer in the field of impact investing? And also what inspired you to bring your legal expertise into the world of impact investing?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anne-Marie. I am a commercial lawyer practicing for 19 years now. I'm based in Kenya, but from this East location, I have a view of Africa through partners in different countries as I work on transactions across Africa. I began my career as a general legal counsel, but now I have grown my expertise in 2 key areas. These are investment transactions, which fall within the umbrella of mergers and acquisitions, and also environmental and energy law. I have found myself supporting big and small investment managers across the continent as they provide both debt and equity financing. I have also found myself on the target side, the company organization receiving funds, preparing these organizations to receive funding and assist them in the view of transactional documentation. It is for this reason I believe that it became possible for me to enter into a great collaboration with BetterVest as it provides debt financing to organizations in Africa. I must say that I quite appreciate the investments that BetterVest has been doing locally and also within Africa, and that they focus on general positive social and environmental change. My interest in this area is purely because I am based here and I can see the struggles that are on the African continent. Accessing capital is one major challenge, and to really see myself participating as a lawyer in such a space and making it possible for such transactions to take place. Organizations that would ordinarily not receive this funding easily in Kenya or in Africa makes it such a wonderful job to do. So yes, this is why I enjoy doing what I do, and I'm looking forward to seeing even more investments happening across Africa.
Yeah, thank you, Penninah, for the great introduction. And yeah, we are also very delighted to have been working with you as our on-site legal expert for 2 years now. And yeah, it's very inspiring to hear your personal story and yeah, to hear what really inspires you to be working in this field. So now let's directly dive into the topic of impact investing in the African market. Penninah, you as an expert on the ground in Kenya, what would you say are 2 to 3 sectors where you see the biggest opportunities for impact investing in Africa today?
Allow me to begin by saying that Africa's vast natural resources, renewable energy reserves, a young population is truly a huge advantage for Africa. And for this and other considerations, it is expected that Africa will be able to participate or be a major player in the global economy. There are various opportunities, as you've said, and one of them, one key one I would want to mention because it touches on various other sectors, is fintech. So the fintech sector remains one of the most attractive investment opportunities in Africa. I have a feeling that anybody now dealing with Kenya, for example, giving Kenya as an example, would appreciate that we have payment platforms that just came up here and they were not on in other countries. One of the main ones is M-Pesa. It's a mobile payment platform that allows the easy person-to-person online transactions as the day goes by. This has been used by both large-scale and small-scale operators, including what we call mama mbogas. These are the vendors who are in the streets. So yes, fintech is a big sector to consider. And also just to mention that it then facilitates or enables other industries to grow. So it cuts across into, agriculture. It supports trade locally. It supports health. So basically, this is a key sector to reckon with, and I have seen quite a lot of investment going into this space, and I expect that actually more will be coming in. Now, for a long time, regulation has been trying to catch up with anything digital, and I believe this is not just an Africa problem. It's a problem also in other markets, but I must say that there has been steps being taken to ensure that regulation is more enabling and not in a way causing these spaces not to grow. So it is expected that these areas will continue to grow. We have now also payment system platforms. We call them PSPs that also are happening here. There is also regulation in this, but it is also regulation that is not as stiff as the banking regulation. So I must say that there are steps being taken to ensure that this sector continues to grow, and therefore investors will continue to look at this as great opportunities where they can actually put in their funding. Now, on the opportunities, I would like also to mention renewable energy. So on renewable energy, we have off-grid solutions such as mini-grids, microgrids, solar home systems, because in Africa, just laying down the grid is quite costly. And we have various places that really are yet to be connected to energy. I must say, as an example here, I only was able to enjoy electricity and a connection from the grid when I was doing my university education. So that can just tell you that in most spaces, most areas, they are operating without a connection to the grid. That is why the mini grids, microgrids, solar home systems become a great need for these spaces, for these areas, and therefore a great opportunity. We have seen a lot of investment going into this. There is another area that I would like to talk about, that is the green hydrogen. This has become such a major conversation because it also provides similar solutions to those of, what we've just mentioned, the off-grid solutions. So if we can be able to even store energy using green hydrogen, then that becomes a very lucrative space we expect to see. So this is still very new, but it is an opportunity that is expected to grow. The geothermal and also battery storage projects, we are already having quite a number of geothermal projects, but on the battery storage projects, this is also a place that we expect to see a lot of investment coming in. And again, it goes back to, remember, it is still difficult to have the grid connection. We are enjoying solar energy the whole day, but if we are not able to store it for use at night, then that becomes difficult. So that space is also a great opportunity that will continue to grow. And I must mention the renewable energy space that is also enjoying incentives, tax incentives, because the governments are trying as much as possible to continue to promote this space in Kenya and also in other countries in Africa. So it is a place that requires that I would say continue to attract investors. And these are not the only ones. More and more areas are expected to grow in the health sector, in the agribusiness, even as we focus on even recycling, for example. The use of renewable energy in Africa causes there to be another opportunity in recycling, because, for example, the batteries need to be recycled, the solar panels need to be recycled. So under renewable energy, we have other areas. Yeah.
Thank you, Penninah, for these valuable insights and also personal insights you were telling us. To add on this, I would also like to know from you, what would you say is one big misconception that people often have when we talk about impact investing on the African continent?
The biggest misconception that people have about investing, impact investing in Africa, is that it is purely charity, and that an investor should not expect any return. As a matter of fact, any return they were expecting, they should sacrifice. And that is not always true. But this is tied to another misconception. There is the imagination or the belief that Africa is one country. And this is also not true. It is a continent with many countries. So putting aside even the usual categories of whether we are talking about the Francophone side and the Anglophone side of countries, it is important to note that even though laws can have similarities within these countries, they remain quite different. And therefore, there is always need to have a trusted advisor on the ground to assist with legal interpretation and regulatory advisories. Neighboring countries can sit quite close together. They might look the same and the language might sound the same, the local language, but the differences are quite huge in most cases. And therefore, an investment in one country cannot just be copy-pasted on another country. So most people who have had who have felt that impact investing in Africa is purely charity, maybe they never took into consideration the uniqueness of each country. So good partners on the ground are key in facilitating the realization of the investment, considering that every country is unique, the culture is different, the laws are different, and it is important to take that into consideration when making an investment.
Thank you so much. I think this is a very, very important point to notice. And first, you can actually, as an investor, expect a return. Also, as an example, on our BetterVest platform, of course, you have the impact characteristic that you have as an impact investor in our BetterVest crowd. For example, you have the social and ecological impact. But you can, of course, also expect a return of up to 9.5% per year, depending on the project. So that's a very important point you mentioned here. And also the other point that it's one continent, but which consists of many, many countries. Emna, maybe you can also add on that. How do you see that point, and what would you see from your perspective? What are the biggest challenges when it comes to facilitating loans for businesses across the continent? And how do you address them?
Thank you, Anne-Marie. What I've noticed in the 2 years I've been working with BetterVest, we've reviewed maybe hundreds really of projects from different countries. And I really connect to what Penninah mentioned about the importance of truly understanding how different each country can be from its closest neighbor, even in most cases, not only in terms of legal frameworks and ways of doing business, but sometimes even we've seen where a very successful business in one country will find it very hard to expand in the neighboring markets. And this is driven by lots of factors. And this is where the biggest constraint in investing in projects in Africa resides. It's this need for a local expertise that guides the framework that we apply when conducting risk analysis. I would say what is really unique about the entrepreneurs we've worked with is the incredible capacity to innovate. And this innovation is not really a buzzword. It's really innovation that comes from very deep understanding of the needs of their markets. This is why our biggest challenge when we work with African entrepreneurs is to take the time to understand the drivers of value creation for that specific business, and being able to understand how we can support them in creating the best financing solution that will not actually block them from being able to grow their business, but rather will enable them to continue on that trajectory of growth and further expand in other markets. One last point is that the biggest mistake someone who is trying to invest in Africa could do is trying to manage everything from afar. What you need is really a capacity to build strong partnerships locally that will guide your decision-making as an investor. This is legal, technical, and operational support on the ground that helps us navigate these parameters, let's say. One more challenge is the unavailability of a long trail of audited data. This is particularly important for us when we work on risk analysis. And unfortunately, this means for us as BetterVest that we do have a limitation on investing in very, very early stage companies. We only work with companies that can provide at least 2 sets of audited financials. This would be the bigger picture of the challenges that we've seen, particularly at BetterVest working with these entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Emna, for your insights. These are really important, and also to notice that it's not just about the financial modeling, but about the real collaborations and the trust on the ground. That is also important. Speaking of partnerships, one of BetterVest's key local partners, of course, is Penninah. and her team in Kenya. So let's explore that connection a bit further now. Penninah, I would like to know from you, based on your experience of working with hundreds of African businesses, what would you say are two critical points from the legal perspective that every lender, so every investment manager or investment management platform, and every borrower, so the companies in Africa, the project owners, what are two critical points that they should pay attention to when entering an impact financing relationship?
Thank you. One of the critical points I would wish to highlight is the regulatory landscape of the specific target. So it could be that one borrower is, for example, in the health sector or the insurance sector or the renewable energy sector. It is important to appreciate what that regulation looks like. So is this target properly registered? Is it licensed? Is it operating in accordance with the law from a compliance perspective? This is key because such an investment, if it goes into a target that is not compliant, then we are looking at a problem which could essentially start manifesting at a very early stage. So this is a very critical point. And the second critical point I would wish to highlight is the potential to really pay. I like what Emna said, that there is that assessment that needs to be done and also a lot of data checked even before the financing is done. And so there is need to assess whether there are certain securities that are required and which securities should this be, and are they properly registered? And of course, now this you would have to do locally. So the registration would be assessed and conducted locally. Depending on the target on the table, it may be important to see if there is need to register, for example, a charge of a land, a register of movable securities. In many cases, when the funding is going into an equipment, for example, that is being shipped into the country, then there is need to actually have that registration in place. Allow me to stretch point number 2 to talk about the assessment of potential to pay, which has to be linked to the reality of foreign exchange issues. So upon borrowing, for example, by a target in euros, and it continues to actually spend the capital in local currency, there is a potential danger that the depreciation or inflation issues in Kenya could affect how it's able to actually pay back. And so there are models that can be put in place with a proper advisor on the ground to see if there is need, for example, for there to be a back-to-back loan arrangement in local currency using the forex depositor security. In this case, each company gets the currency it is required, that is the lender, and the borrower is able to get the currency it needs while avoiding untimely currency rate fluctuations in the open market.
Yeah, thank you so much, Penninah, for these valuable takeaways. And I think this again shows why it is so important to have a local advisor on the ground who is an expert in this field. Now let's take a step further and look what this means for an investors or for the investors who are listening to us today. Emna, if I were an investor hearing all of this, I'd be wondering, what do these partnerships that BetterVest has, for example, with Penninah, as a local expert, what do they actually mean for me when I invest in projects that are offered on the BetterVest platform?
If I were to put myself in the shoes of an investor in projects that we work on in this partnership, I would see this as a partnership that maximizes both legal compliance with Kenyan law, but also transparency in terms of how cash flows are managed, both when they are leaving Germany, but also when we are getting repaid as investors. There's also a very important point for BetterVest, which is that knowing that we have local partners that are experts in this specific market provides some sort of comfort that in the unlikely case where there needs to be legal action, we have a team that is ready to act and enforce the rights of the investors. All of that being said, of course, investing in any project still carries a level of risk that the investor as a person needs to be comfortable with. This is valid for all investments, of course, and something that at the end remains the decision of the investor in regards of their motivation, what motivates them to invest in these projects. And we've seen that our crowd investors are highly engaged in understanding the projects, which communities they have impact on, but also the financial aspects of the projects. So I would say if I were an investor, I would be more comfortable knowing that there is a team of lawyers that oversees the contracts as well as the registration of securities.
Yeah, thank you so much, Emna, for the summary. And yeah, as you mentioned, also we have to always give a risk warning here that of course we have these risk reduction measures in place in every project, but there's always the risk of a complete loss of the asset invested. We provide very transparent information about each project on our platform, but in the end, every investor must take their own informed decision and is himself responsible for this decision. So now, before we wrap up, I'd like to end on a more personal note. So Emna and Penninah, what is your final message to our listeners? What do you want our listeners to take away from this conversation? Emna, you can start, please.
Thank you, Penninah and Anne-Marie, for this lovely conversation that we had. If I were to sum up the takeaway from this exchange, I would say it's very important whether you are a client that wants to raise financing or a crowd investor that is looking and curious about investing in African projects. The best thing to do is focus on choosing the right partner who also has the right partners to help them understand your business if you're a company raising debt financing, and to help them also structure the deal, let's say, or the investment in a way that builds in all the constraints and offers you a resilient repayment structure.
Yeah, thank you, Emna, so much. And Penninah, what are your last words to our listeners?
Thank you so much for the opportunity, first of all, to have this conversation and the discussions we've had today. And also thank you for hosting me in your offices earlier this year. I wish to finish with a Swahili proverb that says, Kidole kimoja hakiui chawa. Roughly, this translates to one finger doesn't kill a lice. It is used to emphasize on the importance of collaboration in the Swahili culture. Rodland Partner is a trusted advisor, an expert that is available to partner with investment managers in the conduct of legal, tax, and also financial due diligence, preparation of suitable transactional documentation, restructuring deals, registering securities, and facilitating exits where necessary. I am truly honored to partner with BetterVest as it continues to invest in projects on the African continent. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emna and Penninah, for sharing your insights and experience. For our listeners to explore our ongoing African projects and find out how you can get involved, feel free to visit our website, bettervest.com. And yeah, thank you for listening and stay tuned for more stories of impact in action.